pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Sam Schmidt. Newton White.
Here.
John Junko.
Here.
Maria Mills.
Bennett. Here.
Bobo Faney.
I'm here.
Lance Green.
Is here.
Thomas Jordan.
I'm here.
Okay. If I can get a consideration of the minutes from the January 26th meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion, any second, any comments? Would you call the roll, please?
Newton White.
Yes.
John Junko.
Yes.
Maria Mills Bennett.
Yes.
Bobo Faney.
Yes.
Lance Green.
Yes.
Thomas Jordan.
Yes.
All right, good deal. Let's move on. We are moving to case number 23-0001. Wow. As soon as I became the chair, we got the short numbers. I love it. MDA amendment, Fourth Amendment to the Master Development of Riverwood PUD.
Tracy.
Go for it. Can I get a motion to open this, please?
I make a motion to open case number PRZA-23-0001.
Second.
So we have the case open and we have a second.
One moment, technical difficulties. Screen just went blank. Okay, there we go. Yeah, but why is this? I don't know. I don't need to see it as long as they can see it. Penelope Cruz Planning. The proposed Fourth Amendment to the Riverwood Master Development Agreement is being requested by the applicant to address the current code enforcement case regarding construction of an elevated accessory structure without a building permit. After code enforcement cited the property owners and the after-the-fact building permit was submitted, it was determined that a portion of the structure was within a 50-foot environmental buffer in the Riverwood MDA and could not be permitted as it was submitted. According to that Riverwood MDA, there is all the lots that back up to the Spruce Creek are required to have this 50-foot buffer that abuts to the creek where no vegetation can be removed except for the construction of elevated walkways to access the creek. See if that changes. Working. I'll just continue on. All the graphics are in your staff report. According to the updated survey provided by the applicant and the aerial photography from Volusia County Property Appraiser's website, the following has been determined in reviewing this application. The overall footprint of the structure is 252 square feet. The area of the structure located in the buffer is roughly 89 square feet, which is approximately 35% of the structure. The area of the structure located outside of the buffer is 163 square feet, or 65% of the structure, and the portion of the structure that encroaches into the buffer is less than 1% of the buffer area. It is the property owner's preference for the structure to remain in its current location since only a small portion of the structure is within the buffer, and the structure is elevated 6 feet above ground and does not result in an impact of the area within the buffer. Additionally, the applicant states that the structure is generally built like an elevated walkway, which is allowed in the MDA in this buffer area, in that it's elevated like a walkway would be and does not have the impacts to the underlying area. The applicant also states that the structure does not create any adverse environmental impacts and was built in a portion of the rear yard that has historically been manicured, and there was no vegetation removed or damaged in the buffer as part of the build. And the staff report included some photographs from prior to when they purchased the property showing that manicured state of that area. As part of the application, the property owner provided those graphics, and staff looked at historical pictures as well to confirm that. At the time of this agenda was prepared, there was only one phone call from someone objecting to this item, and that objection letter was in the staff report. However, after the packet was published, a few days later, the subject objector contacted staff via email stating he no longer objects to the request and asked that his objection be removed. I could not remove it because the packet was published, but I told him I would let you know at the meeting. So based on the portion of the structure being located in the buffer being less than 1% of the overall buffer area, and because the structure is elevated similar to walkways that are allowed in the buffer area, staff is recommending approval of the amendment and is here to answer any questions you have, and the applicant's also here.
All right. Newton, we're going to start with comments to the staff first. Do you have any comments to the staff?
No, I think that was fairly clear.
Johnny?
Was any of the options, because I noticed that they basically, they did have a calculation on how to build it because they were so close to the flat area hitting the 50-foot buffer. But the areas that protrude were the corners of the 50-foot of that structure.
Yeah, and the graphics in the staff report shows that the portions that are in the
So
buffer.
those two corners basically, because it wasn't a 90-degree, the green area is showing the two corners.
Yeah, you can see where it's the
But
striped
they,
area.
They calculated exactly the flush part of the structure was within 50. Had it been 50, they just didn't anticipate the corners were protruding past the 50-foot buffer.
I'm not sure if that was.
one of the options just to then alter the structure and cut the corners off. I had to do that on an addition. I didn't cut one, but we actually designed an addition that was in a cul-de-sac with the pie shapes and the corner was hidden. So instead of going through a variance and variance fees, we just built an addition and we just 45'd the wall to go within the buffer. Did they consider?
Yes, all the different options as far as moving it or altering it have been provided. Because it was such a small portion of it that was in the buffer, and because it didn't impact the environment or underneath it, and because it was elevated similar to walkways, they're requesting to do this amendment to keep it in its current location and current form.
All right, it was just a thought.
They didn't permit it before they built it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maria?
No, I think I'm okay.
Tom?
Yeah, this is an elevated structure, but there's no walkway. It doesn't take you, there's no walkway from it over to the creek, is there?
No, it was just a comparison
Right.
to the type of construction as far as being elevated and not impacting the ground underneath, similar to a walkway that is allowed.
Yep. I'm good.
Bo?
So there was never any kind of inspection done on the construction?
Not yet.
It's
Once
gotta be
it
done.
has to, this process has to go through. And if the amendment is approved, and then in the staff report, it went through the next step, which is the plat note amendment. If these things are approved, then they can finish the building permit review and inspections.
And then they have to go through the HOA. I read in the
Mm-hmm.
letter that there was a comment in there that the construction damaged the shoreline.
No, the construction of this structure did not damage the shoreline. There was a separate call to code enforcement about impacts to mangroves, but that has nothing to do with this structure, and that has already been handled under the jurisdiction of FDEP.
All right, thank you.
I'm curious as to why staff feels that this should be approved.
For the reasons identified in this staff report, as far as
But the elevated structure reason's not the reason, because it's not comparable to a dock, which is what the language reads. We're trying to manipulate the language by saying, well, it's an elevated structure. The elevated structures that are on this and in this PUD or whatever it is for a walkway to get strictly to the water. It's not, that has nothing to do with the tree fort. So
So
I'm just,
staff's review of this, and was reviewed with engineering staff as well, is looking at the fact that it's elevated and it's not impacting the ground underneath as far similar to a walkway. Stormwater can go through. There's no impact to the underlying vegetation and flora. And it also meets the requirements for anything that would be required to be built in that area as far as elevation. So for all those similar comparisons is
Okay.
why, and because of the small amount that's in the buffer.
okay, I see. Okay, I don't have anything yet for staff. Is the applicant here, and the applicant's here wanting to speak to it?
The applicant is representatives here,
Okay.
yes.
Good evening. Jessica Gallo, Cobb Cole Law Firm, 149 South Woodward Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. Although I'm a Port Orange resident, so I'd love to see you guys. I'm here today on behalf of the property owners of this property to talk about the requested amendment to the zoning level documents. We typically see a situation like this more in a variance context where you're just asking for a modification of the setback. But because of the process that this environmental buffer was put in place through, we have to amend the zoning level document, a little bit longer process as we know, to clear this up. And so the structure was constructed without permits. Interestingly, the property owners did receive HOA approval of the structure. They applied for and got that, so it went through the Architectural Review Committee board and all of that. They just either did not know or did not go through the process of getting the permit for the structure itself. Like it was noted, a portion of it does meet that 50%, and then it just butts in a little bit on each side. I think it's a beautiful treehouse. I'd love to have one of these in my backyard. And so they don't want to tear it down and relocate it. They'd request that it can remain in place. When we looked at the zoning document, the 50-foot environmental buffer, of course, was created to preserve the, natural environment and vegetation along Spruce Creek, outstanding Florida waterway, really important resource. The location of this structure does not impact that natural vegetation. If you look underneath that area, it's mulch and sod. There's always been a fence in place since this property owner has owned it, delineating kind of the sodded, manicured area and then the natural buffer area and vegetation. As Penny noted, and I think she did a great job, we did have one person who asked, should this be permitted? I'm opposed to it. It's impacting the environmental area. And then I think what happened is they reviewed the staff report, they reviewed the information that Penny shared with them. You have an outstanding staff, and they kind of said, never mind. It's such a small impact, it's 1% of the buffer within the property itself of that 50-foot that we're talking about here, and they said, I withdraw my opposition, which we'd like to hear. So looking through this, I know we talked about the 50-foot length. I don't know that they were aware of the distance. It just happened that that was the best tree to put this on in the location based on the lot and the fence line. The Land Development Code, and Penny is correctly calling this a raised accessory structure. I'm going to call it a tree house. It's attached to a tree, it's not in the tree. The Land Development Code for accessory structures set forth a minimum setback for tree houses at 7.5 feet. We're well over that even from the fence line here. And so it's really that key environmental protection of the Spruce Creek that this buffer was intending, to protect. And like we said, it's a great idea, absolutely should apply to the mangrove areas and all of that. It's not protecting those natural areas here. We still want to respect it, and we're asking for a very minor modification just for this structure, for this exact square footage that pops over it, so there would be no further changes. It's elevated so water can flow freely. If vegetation were to grow, it could grow under there. So we're asking that we can amend the zoning here to allow this structure to remain in place with the modification. And I'm here for any questions.
Is the fence inside this buffer as well?
It is, and it has been.
The fence is within the 50-foot buffer, and
Yes.
did that have to be approved to have a fence in the buffer?
It's permitted, it's not a structure, right?
Penelope Cruz Planning. If a fence permit were to be submitted today, it would not be approved in the buffer. This fence was existing prior to the applicants purchasing the property, so it's not something we're looking at right now because it's not part of the request. It's not something they installed. So the item before you is just this one item here. We can't require them to remove a fence that is not something we've even looked at.
Interesting. Okay. Any questions of Councilman Newton?
No, it's very clear. It's just, my only comment is, at the point you ran electricity to it, usually that's when electricity, plumbing, is when you trigger building permits, in my mind.
No plumbing out here, I understand. Yeah, so we asked the property owner, an individual constructed the dock for them, so, kind of a single shop contractor. We know every building department here in the county has a list of, here's what needs permits and here's what doesn't, but if you don't go there, it's really difficult. Yeah.
Johnny?
I'd like to know more info about the tree. Is it a protected tree? Is it a hardwood tree? How is the structure? Is it connected in any way to the tree? I've seen a lot of things where people don't take the consideration the growth of the tree, and if it's physically attached with some hardware, it'll start to grow up, and then the tree lifts the entire structure up. So I'm trying to see if this is like a floating tree house around the tree, to
Yes,
see
right.
if it conflicts with the tree itself.
Right. I say it's not, you can see it's supported on its own. I think this is on every screen.
on
Okay,
poles.
Yeah,
perfect.
it's on poles, but
Yep.
they box around it. Do they fasten to the trees?
I don't
Is there
believe there's any,
expansion
no,
space?
it's a hole in the wooding.
So
Yeah,
it's
around.
floating
Mhm.
completely.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, come on up.
And state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Halpern, 6315 Palmas Bay Circle. Me and my wife are here. We're the owners of the property. And to answer your question, the structure is not anchored in any way to the tree. There's about a 1 foot spacing between the tree and what is actually decking around the structure. Structure is not attached at any point or interfere with the tree.
Maria?
I was gonna ask about the tree too, cause the letter mentioned that they cut down several mature trees, so I was a little concerned about that, but other than that, I think I'm okay.
Tom?
Yeah, did the homeowner's documents that you mentioned,
Mhm.
did those state in there that he should get a building permit for anything?
It did not. It just stated the request was approved.
No, it does say it in there. It says he's responsible for getting building permits.
The approval email from the HOA.
On the HOA document that I saw in the packet,
Well, on the form he filled out, it may mention that if required, you may need them.
there you go.
Yeah, the approval email just says your request to install a treehouse has been approved.
No, I said in the documents, so that would be it. Okay, and this has no walkover to the creek from this elevated structure?
It does not. There's
Okay.
a walkover on the property. You can see that in the aerial, but this
Separate from
isn't
this.
connected.
Okay.
Right. Mhm.
So, thanks.
Bo?
No comments specifically, but I have an idea for you.
Sure.
It'd be really cool to put a zip line in there, if you can manage
It's
that.
not approved, so calm down.
Oh, are you?
Okay. My comment is this, that, and again, man, all day long, I'm all about tree forts and I'm all about this kind of stuff and raising my kids and all that. I'm not all about bending the entire PUD to bend a tree house onto the property. I'm not happy about what's happened with this property over the years. I'm not. I am familiar with the property because I do go up and down the creek and I notice what's been cut down, and I'm not going to talk about that. But we're into this buffer already. Okay, this fence is in the buffer. We've destroyed the buffer. We're trying to replant the buffer, but now we're going to bend the HOA documents for 1 foot by 1 foot on a treehouse. I just find this to be an odd request. This is just my opinion of it. And to go out here and to buy all this to try and to bend a treehouse inside of a buffer, I just find it to be awkward. But that's just my opinion of this. But without that, any other comments for this person? Okay. Anybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public want to speak to this? Moms? Anybody? With that being said, I'll bring it back to this panel. Any further comments?
Do we want to hear from the homeowners?
We can. You guys want to speak?
I think our turn.
Okay.
is the next one.
Comments, Newton?
No, none.
Donnie?
I mean, as a contractor, it's a gray area for me. And as a contractor, we are obligated to follow the rules, so we're penalized very highly. And we also have to assume responsibility. Had this been a contractor job, we would have had to fix it. And it would have had to been altered so it meets in compliance. You know, I looked at the structure, I looked at, it was very well put together, it looks like it was done by a carpenter, whoever did. I mean, they're using the carriage bolts, I'm assuming it's all pressure treated lumber. I'm guessing that the poles were anchored with some concrete, anchors and stuff like that. And the corners are just rail and decking. I don't see the structure the structure's in the middle. So the structure is not in the buffer, it's the silly corners. I'm sorry?
On one side it is.
The structure's in the corners?
Yes.
I can't really
The
see.
side that faces
Okay,
the water
alright,
is-
so it's affecting one corner.
Yeah, that corner and that corner. is
Yeah.
similar.
By the way, this is for your kids?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah, I mean,
How old are they
obviously.
now?
11, 14, and 4.
Okay. I had built a treehouse for my kids, permitted and all that fun stuff. And they got to a teenage level, then they stopped. They just didn't think it was, but at the time, we had tea parties in there. It was fun for the kids, but it really has a shelf life. Because the kids get older, they become teenagers, and it becomes a pretty little thing, but I'm just saying, it's a wonderful attempt, for you guys to do something for your kids like that. You guys stepped it up, though. It was really well done. But,
When they
I'm just-
become teenagers, a zip line will keep them.
Yeah, well, okay, that's my personal views on it, so I'll just shut up for now.
Promise?
I don't think I have any comments. I just think for a playhouse, this is a lot to go through for an attorney and all of this, but not my playhouse, so.
Tom?
My comments, I don't think it's a gray area. I mean, there was a failure to get a permit. One phone call could have taken care of all this issue. And it is an encroachment into the buffer. The creek's already impacted, and everything we vary to allow things to happen in there are just affecting the creek overall anyway. That's my comment.
Bo?
Your comment.
And again, I'm gonna somewhat agree with Tom on this one. Again, it's a sensitive area. The whole area down there is a sensitive area, and to continue to impact it. I mean, I know this is, again, I'm all about this treehouse. I love the treehouse. I mean, don't get me wrong. But again, 2 phone calls and you would have figured out that it required a permit and it would have been in the buffer. So, I mean, just because the fence is in the buffer doesn't mean you get to build the rest of it in the buffer. But, and again, I think there's probably some other options that a builder could figure out. But, like I said, I'm with Tom on this one. We just keep impacting the creek edge down there, and it's gonna have an effect ultimately. But, all right, with that being said, I'm done. I have a motion and a second on the floor. You got a comment? I already did public comment. Anybody from the public? Did public already, okay. Will you call the roll?
Newton White,
No.
John Junko,
No.
Maria Mills Bennett,
No.
Bo Faney,
Yes.
Lance Green,
No.
Thomas Jordan.
No.
Five, 1 to no. Okay. Take care of that. Other business, commissioner comments? I'll start with you, Bo.
At this time, I don't have any comments. Welcome to the chair, and look forward to working with you for another year.
Tom?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad you were all nice while my mom was here. So.
You should hear the comments he usually says.
No, nobody's
I'm good.
bleeding.
Johnny, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
No. I got a couple questions. Tammy, you busy or what you got going on? I'm just curious to know what's going on with the Millies down under. Is there any progress with any of this?
No, I believe that project is
Really?
over.
Are you kidding me?
What?
Correct.
In all the exceptions that we granted for that particular property,
The exceptions still apply. They basically apply to the property. So those deviations, basically the additional parking, if the property owners get another tenant in there, they can utilize those then. But basically, if, the Millie's site plan, the Millie's project in general, basically has been cold for almost about close to a year now.
who owns the property?
It's the owners that have the Two Jerks
Freeman's?
Seafood Restaurant. Yeah, basically they are the property owners.
Still?
They've been the property owners throughout the project.
Oh, wow.
There. And then basically
Interesting.
Millie's was acting as the applicant on there who had hired the engineer, and they were working through that then.
I gotcha.
But basically, I think I think it was almost last year at this time, is when staff approved the site plan. There was one item that had to be signed. It did not get signed, and it's gone cold since then. And basically, we,
Do we know why?
I hate to hear the rumors out there, oh, the city's holding me up, or the city's doing, and I'm like, man, you know what?
I've
No,
got a
no,
timeline that will
don't even
show
go
that that
there.
is not the case. Staff bent over backwards to get that project approved. It was more on their side, and I get fed up with those rumors too because they are totally false. Staff did everything he could to make that project go through. There were a number of items of code requirements that they did not want to meet, that staff had to go above and beyond to explain and look for exceptions for them. But yeah, that is totally false. That staff had anything to do to hold that project up.
And I know that. And again, I want to commend you guys for doing what you done. And what we did for Fish as an example. I mean, basically, guys were on call to do what we needed to do to help that customer get open and get busy. And for this to happen, and because I know that's getting ugly too, because them guys are supposed to sell them fish and they ain't selling no fish, and I heard it's getting ugly. You know what I mean, with the restaurant not being built. And I'm kind of saddened because now I'm thinking, okay, here we go again with another long drawn out something that's not there no more.
Right. We were hoping that would be jumpstart the down under area then.
Yeah.
But now we've also working on our plans here for that area to do some improvements there. You'll start seeing those plans coming through here then. So hopefully they get that issue resolved and we can hopefully get another tenant in there because that is prime location for some type of restaurant on that area. But those variances that we had approved, or you guys had approved then, those still apply because those run with the land then. So that
Okay.
kind of helps redevelopment.
There's not a time frame on them. It goes to the property. Huh?
They go to the property, they acted on them there with the development then. So if they wait 5 years, they might have to come back for them then. But hopefully they can resolve whatever they need to resolve and they can move forward with another tenant in there.
Man.
But that's all in the CRA too, right?
Yeah.
Correct. That's in the CRA then.
That's a bummer though. What's going on with Riverwalk? They submitting some plans?
We are currently in the process of doing some reviews of their first draft of their master development agreement. We have a pre-application meeting set up with Bristol, I believe, next week to have everyone start looking at the site plan then. So the MDA and the site plan, those items will probably be coming in this summer. You guys will see them kind of in the late summer, kind of fall then is when those items, the MDA will be going through Planning Commission and City Council then. So that is continuing to move. And like I said, we're getting into the actual, reviewing the document stages right now then.
Nice. All right, cool. That's all I have. Thanks, Tim. All right, staff comments. Tim, you got any? What's new in Port Orange? What's coming new, man? I see all kinds of things going on. I'm like, where'd that come
Self-storage is
from, man?
probably the only thing that's going on now.
Yeah, I see that.
The trend of the season.
Yeah.
What's going across
Miller's
from the
Ale House.
pavilion?
Self-storage.
Self-storage.
Oh, that's right.
Miller's Ale House coming.
Oh,
Yeah, is
that's
that right? Is
Miller's
that
Ale
actually, I
House.
heard that was a rumor. They're
Yep.
tearing down the one and building an ale house there?
Yes.
Nice.
I don't think their
Yeah.
food's that great.
Hey,
But
you hang out enough bars, you'll
It
get some
is.
rumors.
What did she say?
Oh, okay, that's where the rumor started. That's where the rumor was started.
The problem is the bars
The,
eat.
ru- the,
Tell
ru-
them
the,
to improve
the
their
rumor,
food.
rumor started when they submitted an application.
Good deal. All right, any public comments? Moms? Can you come up and give us 3 minutes about Tom when he was a kid? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
So moved.
All right.